mean, it was more about the people. I think I did another interview before, and I told them, like, you know, when I left and decided to leave to go back home, you know, that was something that I cried about, was very emotional about. A lot of SEC teams had wanted me to come, you know, and join them when I transferred, and I just felt like this is the place that I was most comfortable with the people. I mean, I don't know if y'all remember that first year we was here, it was struggles, but every game they showed up. You know, we played Alabama, we played Kentucky, so that second year having the success that I had, and then obviously the belief that I have in Coach Parrish, it just made the most sense.
Welcome onto the sideline, everybody. I am Matt Dowell alongside Claire Foley today. Hope you guys are doing well, having a great week. We are excited. Back in the studio today. Hope you enjoyed our on the scene episode from Birdies with Beamer on Tuesday. Back in our podcast studio, though.
Back in the air conditioning.
Back in the air conditioning, which is not. Yeah, Jared and I, like, I don't know if you guys could tell if you watched it on YouTube. We were drenched. I mean, drenched. It was so hot out there at the golf club, but we had fun. Back in the studio, back in air conditioning, which we always appreciate. And football heavy right now, obviously, as we are about to get the season underway. But Claire, today is a men's basketball dedicated episode because today Claire went over to the CLA where the Gamecocks introduced all of their newcomers to the roster for the upcoming season. And we got to talk to a few of them, get to pick their brains. And one is someone that Gamecock fans know pretty well. So we're going to talk extensively about these newcomers, what they're going to bring to Lamont Paris's team. And then we're also going to talk about an alumni that is here back in town and getting a pretty cool honor. So this whole episode is dedicated to South Carolina men's basketball, which is a lot of fun. And I think that's what's so fun about doing this podcast and covering Gamecock sports, Claire, is that we always have something to talk about in so many different areas. And that's always...
And you never know when it's going to pop up. You don't think that in July you're going to be talking about men's basketball, but here we are.
But here we are. So let's get into it because I know you were down there for a good bit today. You got to watch them practice. You got to speak to a few of them. And we're going to start with the quote-unquote newcomer who is not so new to Gamecock fans. He's just returning for another season with the program, and that is Meechie Johnson, someone who's been with South Carolina in the past, has had a very unique career, Claire, has been back and forth between long career and unique, and been back and forth between here and Ohio State. And a lot of that has been because of things going on in his family. You know, he's had some personal struggles, some tragedies in his life that I think he opened up a little bit about today. So it's not that, you know, it's not an NIL thing. It's not like he just doesn't know what he wants. There has been a reason for his career going the way it has. And Meechie is such a great guy, like such a great guy. He's such a great player and so beloved by Gamecock fans. And I think he's going to be welcomed with open arms by Gamecock fans. But it's good to see Meechie back. And I know he wants to end his college career as a Gamecock and end it with a bang. And before we hear from Meechie, because we did get to talk to him today at the CLA, Claire, you're the one who got to speak to him. What stood out about what Meechie had to say about his return once again to South Carolina?
I think the biggest thing that Gamecock fans probably want to hear is they want someone who wants to be here. And that truly is Meechie Johnson in this moment. He talked about what went into his decision to leave South Carolina in the first place. And like you said, Matt, it was a lot of family-related things, personal matters. But he said that when he did inevitably have to make that decision to go home, it wasn't an easy one. He says he remembers crying about the decision, it being emotional. So after last season, he transferred to Ohio State, but really didn't play much at all. He missed most of the season, taking a break to focus on his mental health. And he said that once it became an idea that he could have another year of eligibility and go finish it out, he said it was kind of a no-brainer for him to come back to South Carolina because of his comfortability here, how much he loved the people and felt supported by the community and the coaching staff here. He said he did have other offers once he was looking to transfer in the first place. Said there were some SEC teams on the table, but inevitably it was here that he really wanted to be. And I remember about a month or so ago, we got a chance to talk to Lamont Paris about this new team. And one thing he said then was that Meechie is really a leader on this team, and that he didn't really have to prove himself. His spot was earned long before. So it was just coming back and stepping in. And today, in seeing the practice, seeing him interact with his new teammates and seeing how they talk about him, it was really clear the leadership he has in this group. One of the new guys, Elijah Strong, he transferred here from Boston College. He talked about he could very well just say, hey, I'm Meechie Johnson. I'm just here to finish out my time. I'm a star. I'm going to do what I want, makes my money, and go home. And he's like, he's not. And Meechie is still not fully recovered right now. He's still dealing with a bit of a back injury, so he's not out there fully participating. And so that's something that Elijah said. He could very well just sit on the sidelines, chill out. And he's like, no, he is the loudest person in that room. And even before they got here this summer, Meechie said he called every single one of them, all the new players, make sure they were good, answered any questions, wanted them to all feel comfortable jumping right back in.
Setting the tone pretty early, and I think that's important because even though Meechie has played for South Carolina before, the team is like vastly different from what he had a couple of seasons ago. I mean, it's almost a completely different team now. So he is coming into new territory in that sense. And I think for South Carolina, you know, they lost their leader, Colin Murray-Boyles, to the NBA. So it is kind of a question of who is going to step up for South Carolina and be that voice. And Meechie is the obvious choice. And I think he's a great one. And I think he has a great relationship with Lamont Paris, which I think has been very evident. And I also think Meechie is very transparent. And I think that's one reason why he is so beloved, because during this process, like when he came back, when he said he was coming back to South Carolina, he put on social media like, I know this is a weird college journey. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and act like this is a normal process, but this is my story. And he just owns his story. And I think that's one reason, like today, he was very, very honest with you guys about his journey and about his process, about his career. And I'm just really happy to have him back. I'm really happy to see how he plays this season, because he does have a lot of very memorable moments in his time as a Gamecock. And I think he wants to help Lamont and this team really in season 3 with Lamont, because last year was rough for the team. And he even said, you know, it could have gone differently. It could have done this. So to have someone like Meechie, who has been here before and has played in a lot of big games, come back and kind of set the tone, be that leader, I think is huge for this team. But before we hear from Meechie, anything else you want to say about him?
I would say, too, that, yes, he was gone for a year, but he still stayed connected to this team. He said that when he was going through mental health stuff, there was a period of time where he kind of just stopped watching basketball altogether. But once he did get back into it, he said he watched pretty much every single South Carolina game. And he mentioned reaching out to Colin Murray-Boyles and Zachary Davis after games, giving them pointers. And he talked about how a lot of those games last year came down to just a handful of points in the final score. And he talked about that in watching that, he felt like this team just really needed a closer, needed somebody to come in those clutch moments, step up, be a leader. And he feels like he's ready to be that in his final rodeo with the Gamecocks.
His final rodeo. I like that. I'm excited to see Meechie back. I can't wait to see him play again. And I know that he's going to get a very, very, I think, a big reception that first time he comes out as a Gamecock, back in a Gamecock jersey. But let's hear from Meechie Johnson. We've talked a lot about him because he is so beloved.
Let him tell you.
And he is captivating. But let's hear from Meechie Johnson from today's media availability and the Gamecock, the newcomer who's not really a newcomer. Here's Meechie Johnson.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, because like basketball is something that I've done my whole entire life. Besides tearing my ACL, I've never took that much time away from the game. And it was just a waiting game because, you know, you're dealing with doctors and stuff like that till they tell you, like, you know, you can play again and they clear you. So, and then as far as the mental health aspect, I learned a lot just about how to handle things myself, how to deal with things, and just life. You know, life is, you know, things happen. So it was just a lot that I learned during the whole process. So it was already kind of going on prior to the season starting. But it really wasn't me, though, like, that made that decision. It was more so the doctors. You know, that's how I was able to get the year back, because the doctors, you know, was the people who said, like, this is something that you need to prioritize first versus basketball. So it's kind of just listening to what they were telling me. And, you know, when they was like, you know, you're getting better and, you know, rehab and sessions like that, then it was like, okay, it's time to you start getting back to it. At that point, you know, season was almost over. So, I mean, it was more about the people. I think I did another interview before, and I told them, like, you know, when I left and decided to leave to go back home, you know, that was something that I cried about, was very emotional about. A lot of SEC teams had wanted me to come, you know, and join them when I transferred, and I just felt like this is the place that I was most comfortable with the people. I mean, I don't know if y'all remember that first year we was here, it was struggles, but every game they showed up. You know, we played Alabama, we played Kentucky, so that second year having the success that I had, and then obviously the belief that I have in Coach Parrish, it just made the most sense.
Meechie Johnson back in a Gamecock uniform, and we are very, very excited to see his final rodeo, as Claire calls it. I like that. Meechie Johnson's final rodeo, and he's going to hopefully go out there and perform his best. We're going to take a timeout here on South Carolina Sideline. When we come back, we'll introduce you to the other newcomers, the newest faces for South Carolina men's basketball, who are very, very excited to enter a new chapter for the Gamecocks. South Carolina Sideline returns right after this. So Meechie Johnson, technically a newcomer to this roster this season, but he is very well known. As far as the other 10 that are joining the Gamecock roster, because there are 11 newcomers, including Meechie, 10 true new faces to this roster. And Claire, those are the ones that everyone, Meechie was the headliner today at the availability, but the other 10 are truly us trying to get to know who they are, get to know their stories, know who they are. Who are some of the ones that you got to talk to today and that really stood out to you?
So as I mentioned before, got a chance to talk to junior transfer from Boston College, Elijah Young. He just seems like a really mature guy. In comparison to the other three I talked to, they were all freshmen. So even just being out in front of the media, it seemed like that was something he was more used to. Very complimentary of what the team has been doing so far in the summer, especially in Meechie Johnson. Like I said before, I'm really excited to get to know him more on and off the court because of that immediate personality he brings to the group. Obviously, he's coming in with a little more experience coming from the ACC, being a junior. So excited to see the value that he adds. And then, like I said, I talked to 3 other freshmen, Grant Polk, Abu Yamar, and EJ Walker. Now, all of them, like I said, a little more quiet, a little more timid. But the one thing that they kept talking about, which I think was going to be everyone's question going into it when you have 11 newcomers, is how is the team bonding? How is the team chemistry going? And all of them talked about it kind of unprompted, that team chemistry is going really well for them so far.
Good. That's a good thing to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And they did kind of mention in comparison to last year, so that makes you wonder if there were maybe some things off the court that there just wasn't that clicking.
The camaraderie. The chemistry.
The chemistry just wasn't there, and maybe that's what led to some of the close losses for them last year. But they said that's not the case so far this summer. They've been really close on and off the court. They said it wasn't anything that was awkward at the beginning. They said it was really seamless. And one thing that stood out to me that EJ Walker said about that was he thinks that's a testament to Lamont Paris and how he recruits. He's like, he just recruits good people. He recruits people that want to be here, that want to win. And so they're all just coming in with the same goal right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think that's great to hear, because when it comes to Lamont Paris, the SEC has gotten so good at men's basketball. I think, it was all about the ACC for a long time, and the ACC is still great, not really in recent years, but the SEC is really taken over. And I do think there's a little bit of pressure on Lamont Paris going into this season, because the first season he's new, he makes the tournament, it's all going great. He's the SEC Coach of the Year, all that good stuff. Second year, not so great. And in a world where it's results now, and when the SEC is bringing in so much money these days, I think this year, I don't want to say it's a hot seat year. I don't know if that's too dramatic, but I do think there's some pressure results-wise. And so I think it's good to hear the positive remarks about how things are going right now, to see this team that does have a lot of new faces coming together and seeming to really like each other already in July. And so I think that's good for Lamont Paris and good for his team, good for the chemistry, because the SEC is so good that you just wonder if they have another season where they win 2 or 3 conference games. What does that mean for the future of this program? In just a conference that is so good. But anyway, back to the new faces, because that is just that was something that was on my mind as we entered this new basketball season.
And I will say too, to talk about Lamont Paris, obviously we saw probably like 10 minutes of practice today, so sample size not that big. But he was extremely active in that practice. Like, they were stopping pretty often, and he was making corrections and stuff like that, extremely vocal. And I asked some of the newcomers about what they've learned from him so far, and one of the things that Abu mentioned was that he's made him really want to be an elite defender, and like gone down to like the nitty gritty of even just like how he's moving his feet and stuff like that. And I think that when you're seeing the attention to detail so early in the summer, and especially trying to focus on defending as the game of men's basketball, whether at the collegiate level or probably more so at the professional level, defense is so big when you have so much focus on offense. So maybe that's a preview of what's to come, that we're going to expect a defense-heavy Gamecock team this year. So we'll see.
Defense wins championships, and the defense in the SEC is always crucial. But let's hear from some of those Gamecock newcomers. And Claire, you want to toss to the orders for those who are not watching us on YouTube, if you're just hearing their voices for the first time, you know who exactly you're listening to and in what order. So Claire, you want to toss to this soundbite?
Sure. Let me think what I put up in my story before. I'll just say it now and then I'll go back and do it after. Let's go EJ Walker, Grant Polk, Abu Yamar, and then Elijah Strong.
There you go. Let's hear from the newcomers from today's media availability.
I think it hasn't really been hard at all, really. Just I feel like we get along real well off the court and everything, so just building the chemistry off the court has really helped on the court, just being able to talk to each other and just be comfortable with each other. So.
I'd say it's definitely been different. Most of my life I've been on teams where I played with like guys that I know. But I think, especially our team being brand new in a league like this, we have bonded like very well compared to what the team was last year, I've heard. So that's definitely helped us a lot, like on the court and off the court.
I learned a lot of things, especially defensively. He made me really want to like be an elite defender and take pride in defense. And just the little things are like your feet placement when you're shooting. Just stuff like that can take me a long way.
It's definitely a process because you gotta figure out who likes what. You gotta figure out where one guy likes to be and where the other one wants to be. So you gotta figure out tendencies. You gotta figure out playing styles. And I feel like we're doing pretty well because everybody's starting to understand why we're doing the things that we're doing. And Coach Paris is really good at putting guys in spots where he knows they will succeed.
So a lot of newcomers there. Again, there were 11 there. We didn't get a chance to talk to all of them in that time. So hopefully we'll get to meet the other ones. We talked to 5, 6? Five,
including Meechie. And you know what? Tried my best to remember all their names off the top of my head. Apparently, I said one wrong. It's Elijah Strong.
Yes.
He is the transfer from Boston College.
From Boston College. And of course, she said it right every time. Until that one moment. So she doesn't know her
nervous,
stuff.
I guess.
Yeah. But Elijah Strong, another experienced player. But again, hopefully we'll get to talk to all of the other ones that we didn't get to speak to today throughout the season. Another one is Eli Ellis, who is the TikTok star who's on the Gamecock team. And so I can't wait to really get to pick his brain because I think just when you think of the world and the way the digital age we're in, the 1.4 million followers that he's got on TikTok, the influence that could bring to this team, the attention that could bring to the Gamecock program, because he's a personality and he's had a lot of attention for a few years because of his social media following. So I'm excited to see the energy and the vibes that brings to this Gamecock program.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that new digital age is all developing in sports. Obviously, they have the NIL stuff now, but he's already started posting about being here with the Gamecocks, so he's already advertising for them. And one thing that's interesting about him and his story, obviously he's a freshman coming into the SEC, talked about how the SEC has grown to be the biggest conference within men's basketball, and he's not a tall guy. So he's got a chip on his shoulder already coming in. So I think that'll be a big story for him. A lot to prove, big personality, and I'm sure we'll see that out on the court.
Yeah, and I was trying to think, it's very rare, I think, for any program to have someone coming in out of high school that already has that big of a following.
Yeah.
I mean, 1.4 million, that's a lot of people who are watching you and following you. So that's fun to kind of have someone who already has an established fan base coming in and just to see what he brings. And he's posted a lot about how excited, like truly excited he is to be a Gamecock because he had a lot of offers. He could have gone to a lot of places, and he's excited to play for Lamont Paris. But anything else you want to add about this new crop before we go to our next topic?
I think it's just exciting.
Yeah.
I know we've gone to a lot of media days in the last couple of weeks. And one thing I heard a coach say was this time of year, everyone's excited about their group. They're high on them. They think that it's going to be a really great year. And obviously, I'm sure South Carolina men's basketball is feeling that way, and hopefully so after last year. But I think the vibe is there. I think you have some great leadership, both from a player and coaching standpoint. And I'll be excited to see how that all plays out. One thing I talked to these players about too is that because there are so many newcomers, that makes them a tough team to scout. You don't know how all these different guys are going to play together and stuff like that. So they're coming in with a chip on their shoulder because of last year and because people are having so many question marks around them because they're so new. So we'll see.
We will see. Well, we're going to take a break here on South Carolina's sideline. The basketball season's still a while away. I don't know the next time we'll get to talk to Lamont and his crew, so it might be a couple of months, but good to hear from them today at our media availability. But we're going to take a timeout here. When we come back, a former Gamecock men's basketball player and a Gamecock legend who knows a thing or two about winning on the big stage is back in town. He's attending some camps. He's getting a big honor at his alma mater here in town this week. And we'll talk PJ Dozier when South Carolina Sideline returns. Well, Alex English was on our podcast a few weeks ago talking about his summer camp, the skills camp that he always puts on for the youth here in Columbia. And that has happened. It's come and gone. It's crazy how time flies. And, Claire, he always gets celebs to come because Alex English is a celebrity. Yeah. He's an icon. So if he texts you and says, hey, you want to come to my skills camp?
His contact list.
Yeah, right. If you want to come to my skills camp, I think everyone just drops what they're doing and goes because he had Tanaya Latson and Raven Johnson there one day. But one former Gamecock men's player that he had there was PJ Dozier, and you got to talk to PJ. Of course, PJ, a Gamecock legend, was part of that 2017 Final Four team. As a Columbia kid, he's just very, very beloved, and the Dozier family in general is beloved here in Columbia. But you got to talk to him at the camp, and it's really great to see him back in Columbia. And I can't believe it's been 8 years since that Final Four run. But good to see PJ, and you got to talk to him.
Yeah, so like you said before about how it seems that when Alex English hosts this camp, he just gives people a call. They just drop everything and go. PJ has been one that's been coming to this camp for a few years now to talk to these kids. And obviously, I asked the question, well, why do you come back to this camp? Why do you want to give back to the people of Columbia? Obviously, a little softball question there. But no, he said he has always respected that Alex wants to give back to the community here, and that's just something he always looked up to and wanted to be a part of. I thought it was funny, one thing he said when I asked him about the message he was going to try to impart on these kids. He's like, well, we're all human. We all put on our shoes and socks the same way. I was like, hey, that's true. And he's saying that he wanted to just remind them that even though he played in the NBA and is playing overseas now in Turkey, if you want to go for your dreams, everybody starts as a human. They all start somewhere. So just put your head down and go to work. Yeah,
I mean, at one point in time, PJ was one of those kids with just, a basketball and a dream, and he worked hard and made it to the ultimate goal, which is the pro level, and played in the Final Four. Just an unbelievable career. But good to hear from PJ Dozier. And here is what he had to say at Alex English's camp, because he's returned to Columbia and giving back to the local kids here in Columbia.
I've been coming to speak to the kids for Alex for a few years now. The first time he called me, it was a no-brainer. I appreciate everything that he does or has done for me and that he does for the community and the kids. So I just try to allow them to know who I am as a player, as a person, and kind of give them little notes on what has got me to where I am now. We're all humans. We all put our shoes and socks on the same way. So being able to try to be able to relate to everyone, all the kids, and let them know that I was them at one point in time. Looking up to different guys that played this game, especially locally.
Also, before we wrap this segment up, a shout out to PJ Dozier, whose jersey has been retired at Spring Valley High School this week. a very just an exciting time for PJ. And it feels like just yesterday he was a high school kid, playing for the Vikings and then going on to play for the Gamecocks, and time just flies. But
big time for Columbia natives in men's basketball.
Yeah, you're right.
Got Colin in there.
Colin, everybody. And on the women's side, I mean, Columbia really is like a hot spot for basketball talent. It's pretty incredible. But shout out to PJ Dozier, whose name is now forever in the rafters over there at Spring Valley High School, and a Vikings legend. We'll wrap things up here on South Carolina Sideline right after this. Thanks again, everybody, for watching and listening wherever you get your podcast and watching us here on YouTube. We have a big week next week here on our podcast. We have a local media day with South Carolina football as their practice begins on Friday, August 1st. So we're going to talk to Shane Beamer and all of the Gamecocks at this local media day, and that is what next Tuesday's episode will be focused on. And then Roscoe Wilson, Asia Wilson's dad, is going to come on the podcast. I'm so excited to get Roscoe here on the podcast to talk about his life in basketball, and of course, raising Asia Wilson to become the best basketball player in the world, y'all.
I'm sure he's got some stories.
Oh, we're going to talk. We're going to talk all kinds of things. So I'm excited to have Roscoe on. So it's a big week next week here on our podcast. Cannot wait to dive into it all. She's Claire Foley. I'm Matt Dowell. As always, like, subscribe, follow, comment, whatever you want. Do it all here on the podcast. Thanks for joining us here on the sideline. We'll see you next week.